this video I'm gonna show how I made a vinyl fursuit. And if you don't know me, I'm Cosplay, a fursuit maker, and I make a lot of tutorials about how to make fursuits. I started by making a small tape pattern on a 3D printed base. This is going to be the pattern for the foam head base. I then scaled the pattern on my PC up to full size. The scale of the model is about 1/3 of normal size, so I scaled up the pattern by 3 times. By the way, this specific pattern is not available on my shop because of the reasons I mentioned later in this video. I then traced the pattern to upholstery foam, and the thickness I used for this is about 2 centimeters. I then cut all the pieces out just using a normal scissor. Before gluing the pieces together, I glued those small slits. It's so that the shapes are more round. And then I glued all the pieces together one by one. And this took a while, so enjoy the music. Now with most of the pieces glued together, I had to stabilize the base because it was a bit flat. So I cut one of the slits a bit wider. It helped a little bit with the shape. Then I glued a piece on the inside to keep the base in shape. I had to add a few pieces for it to hold. Sadly, I was still not happy with how it looked, so I took a bit of it apart and modified the base. And I also tried to carve the edges a bit rounder. And to make the base more stable, I cut a bucket head base. Which I also glued together. And then I tried to attach the glued base on it. A bit different than I wanted to do, and I ended up also cutting new pieces of the cheek. Because how they were, I was not happy with the shape. This is also the reason why the pattern is not up on my shop, because I modified this pattern so many times that I don't even recognize it anymore. But if you're asking for a pattern like that, I am going to try and redo the pattern sometime in the future, but as it was with this one, I just couldn't release it because it was so modified in the end. I had no idea how to proper fit them together. So I kind of winged it a bit. With the head base done, I started taping the inside for the pattern for the lining. And then I placed it on my mannequin head so I could tape the neck too. And then I marked and cut out the pieces. I traced the pattern to a neoprene fabric. It's stretchy and it's also very comfy against the skin, so that's why I use it. For the inside of the mouth, I used minky. After cutting the fabric, I sewed it together piece by piece. And then I glued the lining on the inside of the head. I made sure to do it in small steps at the time. And with the lining glued on, it was time to make a pattern for the fabric on the outside. I covered the whole base in duct tape, and I cut really tiny pieces of the duct tape because I needed to be as precise as possible. That's also why I didn't use plastic wrap underneath, which I usually do on foam bases, but I had to make sure this one was as accurate as possible. That means I was also a bit careful when I took the tape off the base again. I traced the pattern to vinyl, and I made sure to mirror the pieces for the outside of the face, because the pattern was only made on half of the face. And then I cut all the pieces and sewed them together one by one. It can be a little tricky to sew. I also made some hair for the top of the head out of vinyl too. And here's the whole face and back of the head sewn together. And I sewed the top hair on, as shown. I turned it inside out to make sure everything was as it should be. Then I attached the zipper on the back of the head. And this is how the skin looks like. And before gluing the vinyl on, I glued the eyes in. I have other videos where I show how I make eyes. And then it's time to glue the vinyl on, also small steps at a time. And I mostly added glue where the seams on the fabric are. The reason I only glued on the seams was because I want to avoid having visible glue shown from the outside. I did end up further on the head having to add glue where there was no seams. Overall, this was a very tricky process. Because since the fabric is not stretchy, so wrinkles show very easily. And it's very difficult to avoid the wrinkles. Then I sewed the vinyl and the mouth lining together, all by hand. I trimmed a bit away around the eyes because there was a bit too much fabric. I always add a bit extra just to make sure it fits around the eyes. And then I glued it down. And then I sewed the neck lining and the vinyl together. And this was done on machine because it gives a cleaner look. And then I sewed the zipper to the lining by hand. And for teeth I sewed some white fabric together. I believe I used neoprene for this. And for the tongue I used vinyl. This is my first time trying to make teeth with this method. And I'm happy how that turned out. And then I hand sewed the teeth into the lips. And the tongue was magnetic, so it was easy to slip that in. For the eyeliner I first made a pattern on clear tape. And then I traced that to very stiff felt. And cut it out. And lastly glued it on. And there you go, my first vinyl suit. And I had to try a few new things here. Like trying to make a pattern for the head base, which didn't go as well, so I need to redo that at some other time. This is not the last time I'm gonna work with vinyl. I plan on making a full suit at some point with another character. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and hopefully learned something too. And if you're new here, I make a lot of tutorials on how to make fursuits and cosplays, so feel free to subscribe for more stuff like this. And until next time, bye!